Part 16. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 151. Although the inner courtyard looks large, there are not many really useful places. Even the rooms he just came out of are only 5. The others are functional, such as kitchens, toilets, and more. Decorate. That means this place can receive up to 5 different groups of guests at one time. According to Yukino Tekkai, this place should be very popular, but Lin Zion didn't see anyone in other places except the kitchen. Even if it is a private restaurant, there should at least be a waiter, but there is not even a waiter here. What's even stranger is that Yukino Tekkai is also missing. In general, there is something weird everywhere here. But Lin Zion didn't care, he even hoped it would be interesting and not waste his time. Returning to the room from the beginning, Lin Zion sat down cross-legged and waited quietly. There were no chairs here, so he had to sit on the floor. There isn't even a chair in such a big place, Lin Zion complained softly. He knew that this place was an antique. The neons of that era didn't use stools at all. They all sat upright. But that doesn't stop him from complaining. After all, times have changed, and those who can't keep up with the times are doomed to be eliminated. In fact, Lin Zion was just complaining and thinking randomly to pass the time. The reason is because there is no signal in this place. I don't know if it is too remote or there is signal interference. You want me to take advantage of this service attitude? You want to eat shit? Lin Zion was left alone for almost half an hour before anyone came. A girl pushed the door open and came in. She saw Lin Zion half lying on the ground without any image, holding a mobile phone in one hand and dangling on his lap. He was clearly a bored child to the extreme. He didn't look like a master, but he was just being polite. She still asked, "Excuse me, sir, was it Uncle Swy who invited you here?" "That's right, where did Uncle go?" Lin Zion turned over and sat up, facing the person directly. Gao Shimei just saw Lin Zion's back, but when Lin Zion turned around, a bitter smile appeared on her face. Originally, she thought Lin Zion was wearing some kind of uniform, but now it seems that he is wearing a black school uniform. Looking at the logo on his chest, he is clearly a high school student. How can he be a master? Thinking of something, the wry smile on her face couldn't help but become a little more depressed. Lin Zion was also convinced. After waiting for so long, the visitor smiled like this when he saw him. Lin Zion, am not that bad, right?" "Who are you?" Lin Zion asked, frowning slightly. "Oh," Takaishi Mai hurriedly stepped forward, "I am Takaishi Mai, and I am here to take the master to the courtyard. Uncle Yukino is waiting for you." "Don't call me a master. I'm not a master. You can call me Kong Muqing Tian." Lin Zion looked at the girl who bowed slightly in front of him. Only her eyes are distinctive. The rest of her facial features are considered ordinary, but together they give her a gentle feeling. The most peculiar thing among them is her eyes, which are extremely bright, as if she is placed in darkness. Her bright eyes like stars cannot be concealed, and her long black hair is braided into a thick braid. The braid spreads her sunshine to others as she moves. It would be better if there wasn't a sad look on his face. "Then let's go." Lin Zion stood up and walked towards her. Yes, Gao Shimei turned around and led the way. She felt uncomfortable when she was looked at by Lin Zion just now, as if she was naked in front of him. Lin Zion walked out with her, thought of the question just now, and asked, "Why is there no one in this place?" "Uncle Swy said it's quite popular, isn't it?" "That was before. My grandpa came here to recuperate after he fell ill. He didn't like the noise, so he stopped receiving guests here. Those people were naturally cleared away, and of course there was no one." Lin Zion nodded to express understanding, and then asked, "Then do you know why Uncle asked me to come over?" "I don't know," Takaishi Mai replied, shaking her head. "Then tell me what happened to your grandfather. Is this why you are unhappy?" Gao Shimai suddenly stopped and turned to look at Lin Ziyan. How do you know? It's obvious. Lin Ziyan didn't even want to say it anymore. Your face was so obvious that no one could tell. Moreover, her tone changed obviously when she mentioned her grandfather just now. I can't tell you this. Takashimai did not answer his question, but turned around and continued walking. Lin Ziyan did not ask any questions, but felt her pace quicken. The two people walked for about 10 minutes, passed through the inner courtyard, and came to the back of the inner courtyard. An exquisite single-story villa, not big, but just right as a place for self-cultivation. Lin Ziyan followed Gao Shimai and walked in. As soon as he entered the door, Lin Ziyan felt very lively. How lively was it? Several people gathered around the hall. In the middle of the hall, there were two monk-like people sitting on the ground, talking about something they didn't know. After taking Lin Ziyan in, Takashimai left, and he had to go find Yukino Tekkai by himself. Lin Ziyan's entry also attracted the attention of those people, but seeing that it was Gao Shimai who brought him, no one paid attention to him and let him move around. Lin Ziyan called Sui Wuhei out, and the two of them came outside. Before Lin Ziyan could say anything, he said, I'm really sorry, something happened. Lin Ziyan also said angrily, Uncle invited me here to have a vegetarian meal, right? I heard that this place has stopped accepting guests. How could that be? I'll apologize to you here first and make it up to you. Don't talk about these nonsense first, tell me what's going on first. Why did you call me over? Lin Ziyan doesn't want to play with you even if he has patience. He was lying comfortably at home at this time, not like now. If he wasn't a little interested in this matter, his face as Shuya Wuhai would not be useful. Okay, Shuya Wuhai smiled bitterly. Everything was arranged, but who knew that two monks suddenly appeared and interrupted his plan? He didn't expect things to turn out like this, so he had to let Gao Shimai call Lin Ziyan over. But now the little ancestor is unhappy, and the problem is even more troublesome. This story started half a month ago. The owner here, Mr. Gao Shi, is my senior. He suddenly fell seriously ill half a month ago. When I came to visit him, he could no longer speak. Finally, he fell into a coma. He was awake for no more than an hour a day. Modern medicine has not detected any physical problems. I guess it may be something strange, so I would like to ask you to come and try. You should know that watching a show is one thing for me, and taking action is another. Mr. Gao Shi and I are close friends regardless of age. I received a lot of help from him when I was young. I will pay your appearance fee, Ziyan. Money is of no use to me. I will wait until I see what his condition is before I decide whether to take action. If it is not those things, you know, life, old age, sickness and death are all up to fate. I understand. Yukino Takemi's expression was slightly heavy. This was an unavoidable problem, and he would experience it one day. My retirement life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 152. What are the two monks there doing? Lin Ziyan glanced inside and asked. I don't know. Mr. Gao Shi's son invited him here. He said he would hold a Dharma conference for Mr. Gao Shi to ensure his safety and so on. Ha, there is a hammer for you. Lin Ziyan laughed and said, do you believe the two fake monks talking nonsense? What? Both of them have no Taoism, and what they recite are not Buddhist scriptures at all. They are not professional at all. Are all those who cheat money today so unprofessional? Then do you want to tell them? Although Sui Wuhei asked, Lin Ziyan could see that he didn't want to say it at all. I have to say that a person as big as Yukino Tekkai still has bad tastes. By the way, what happened to the girl who brought me here just now? Why, do you like her? Sui Tekkai said with a smile. No, I just can't figure it out. Lin Ziyan ignored Sui Tekkai's joke and expressed the doubts in his heart. She clearly called Mr. Gao Shi in your mouth, Grandpa. which means she is the daughter of one of the people there, but her status here seems a bit. Linzian suddenly didn't know how to describe that feeling. The status is low, right? Switek Kai took over. Almost, what's going on? Alas, Yukino Tek Kai sighed in a low voice. He had no intention of joking now. Mai is the illegitimate daughter of Mr. Takaishi's eldest son. Most people really don't know about this. Mr. Takaishi usually takes care of it. If she doesn't know what to do now that Mr. Gaoshi is gone. Don't do this, I just met her, and I won't take the emotional card when it's played. Linzian couldn't help laughing and scolding Switek Kai like that. Then what should we do now? Tek Kai Yukino changed the topic in an interesting way. Longze Linzian looked towards the villa. I'll go see Mr. Gaoshi you mentioned first. You can listen to the Dharma conference here. Linzian ignored Sui Wuhei and went directly into the villa. He walked in a big way. Everyone was listening to the Dharma meeting in the front hall, and no one paid attention to him. Even though the villa only had one floor, it still covered a large area, and the rooms were strange. Linzian had to look for them one by one, but after searching for a long time, he could not find the room where Gaoshi was. Who are you? What are you doing here? Linzian was stopped by a sudden voice from behind. He turned around and saw a girl in school uniform appearing in front of him. She has air bangs and long shawl hair, and her face is a bit pointed. Her facial features are somewhat similar to Takaishi Mai's, but unlike Takaishi Mai, she wears light makeup to make her facial features look more three-dimensional, and her legs wrapped in black stockings are relatively long. Gives people a strong feeling. But she doesn't have the gentle and pleasant temperament of Takaishi Mai. H&Z was the feeling she gave Linzian. It's definitely not because of the black stockings, believe me. Judging from the style of her school uniform and the school logo on her chest, she is also a student of Aoyama Academy. The visitors also saw his school badge and looked at him with interest. What are you doing here? I don't remember you. Who are you? Why don't I remember you? Linzian asked. You dare to come here without even knowing me? Gaoshi Dozai glanced at Linzian with disdain, then raised his head and said, I am Gaoshi Dozai, remember? Remember? Linzian nodded, then turned and left. Hey, stop! Gaoshi Dozai walked quickly to Linzian, stopped him, and asked, what are you looking for? I'm looking for Shuichiro Takaishi. Why are you looking for Grandpa? Gaoshi Dozai looked at the man in front of him curiously. It was really strange for a stranger to say such words at this time. Forget it, if you don't tell me, I'll find it myself. Linzian found that talking to her was useless, and he had to face her condescending face. Even if he did it again, he would feel uncomfortable. Grandpa is not here. If you tell me why you are looking for Grandpa, I will take you there this time. Gaoshi Dozai let him go, as if he had the pearl of wisdom in hand. If I find Gaoshi Mai, she will take me there, so there is no need to trouble the eldest lady. Linzian shook her head, but it was a pity that she was holding a mentally retarded one. If she dares to tell you, I will have her kicked out. Oh. Do you want us to make a bet? Linzian turned around with a faint smile on his lips. Her success in committing suicide aroused Linzian's interest. How to bet? Gaoshi Dozai pretended to be strong and showed no weakness at all. I will find Mr. Gaoshi myself, and you? Linzian looked at her with a smile. Promise me a condition. Tell me what the conditions are first. If you can't afford it, go away and don't block me. Humph. If you can't afford it, just come. Although Gaoshi Dozai was a little panicked, she was very confident about that location. People who have never been there will definitely not be able to find it. Linzian released his spiritual consciousness that had been restrained for a long time and explored this place in the blink of an eye. It's there, no wonder, Linzian muttered after finding the location. What did you say? He suddenly said, follow me to Gaoshi Dozai, and started walking. I have to say that rich people really know how to play. From the back door of the villa, you can take the path back to the inner courtyard in front, and Mr. Gao Shi is in a wooden house in the outer courtyard. As Lin Zian got closer, Gao Shi Dozai's face began to turn pale, until the two stopped in front of the wooden house. Mr. Gao Shi is inside, right? Did I win? You must have colluded with Gao Shi Mai to deceive me. Look, I said don't play if you can't afford it, Lin Zian teased her. Who said I can't afford it? You tell me, what are the conditions? Gao Shi Dozai looked around, as if there were no living people except the two of them. What if he makes an excessive request later? Lin Zian wanted to laugh when he saw her, but he still suppressed his smile and said, my request is. Lin Zian was just deliberately delaying time to scare her. What are you doing? Gao Shi Mai came over and asked the two of them what they were doing here. Sister, why are you here? And I am Chongmu Qingtian. Lin Zian saw that she probably forgot her name, so he reminded her. Oh. Yes, Shigeki Aota, I got it. Takaishi Mai scratched her hair and smiled foolishly, I will remember it next time. Looking at Takaishi Mai's appearance, Lin Zian couldn't help laughing anymore. I don't know why, but watching the two people laughing, Takaishi Dozai felt inexplicably disgusted. She yelled at Takaishi Mai. Stop laughing, it's really embarrassing for our family. Her yelling scared Takaishi Mai silly, and after staying there for a few seconds, she apologized to Takaishi Dozai. Sister, don't be angry, it's all my fault. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 153. What are you pretending to be? Go away. Dozai turned his head to one side without looking at Mai Takaishi. Seeing Gao Shi Mai's helpless look, Lin Zian laughed angrily, pointed at Gao Shi Mai and said to Gao Shi Dozai, apologize to her now. What? Gao Shi Dozai looked surprised and asked, why should I apologize to her? Why? You seem to have forgotten something. Lin Zian looked at her with a smile, but the meaning of the smile was worth estimating. You actually used that condition for her. Gao Shi Dozai pointed at Gao Shi Mai and shouted to Lin Zian. It's my business how I like to use it. You have no control over it. You just have to follow the instructions. There is so much nonsense. Stop arguing. Gao Shi Mai was weak and helpless at the side. When will it be your turn to interrupt when we are talking? Gao Shi Dozai was as irritable as a little lion, yelled at Gao Shi Mai, and then glared at Lin Zian. What? If you can't afford it, just walk away, otherwise you'd better fulfill your promise before I change my mind. I can't guarantee what will happen to the request later. Lin Zian was not affected by her at all, and he let him go wild. Flick the hills. You. Gao Shi Dozai was speechless for a moment. Indeed, according to Lin Zian, this condition is the easiest to accept now, just an apology, but the problem is that his request seems to Gao Shi Dozai to humiliate her. Hurry up, I'm in a hurry. Lin Zian kept urging her. Seeing her face turning red, Lin Zian felt extremely happy. Pretending to be a kohlrabi in front of him is seeking death. Don't force sister, I don't need sister to apologize. Gao Shi Mei also knew that the problem was with Lin Zian, but she could only plead to Lin Zian and could not do anything else. I'm playing a game with your sister, it's none of your business. Lin Zian was having a great time, how could he let her go? It's a pity that Takaishi Mai's words not only had no effect, but also aroused Takaishi Dozai's rebellious psychology. You bully me, Gao Shi Dozai shouted before turning around and running out. Upon seeing this, Gao Shi Mai wanted to follow, but was stopped by Lin Zian. She's angry now, why don't you go with her and get scolded? It's all you. Let me go. I'm afraid something will happen to my sister alone. Don't worry, She's not that fragile. Lin Zian had just asked Kyungsun to follow her, so nothing serious would happen. It's just fun, it won't be fun if something goes wrong. What are you doing here? Takashi Mai asked angrily. What's your attitude? It's a shame that I helped you vent your anger just now. Sister has been very good to me, I don't need you to vent my anger on my behalf. Gao Shimai rolled her eyes at Lin Zian. Is her attitude just now good? I heard she said she wanted to kick you out. Sister, her character is like that. She is just a sharp-tongued person with a soft heart. Apart from my grandfather, I am the only one who will be kind to me. Then I blamed her wrongly. Lin Zian was a little surprised. It seemed that the relationship between the two of them was not as bad as he imagined. Of course, if you apologize to her later, she will definitely forgive you. I'm not wrong, why do you want me to apologize? Lin Zian curled his lips. Compared to your troublesome sister, I think your grandfather's matter is more important. Huh, Gao Shimai looked at Lin Zian doubtfully. Why are you looking for grandpa? Didn't you say you are not a master? Wait a minute, why do you keep calling me master? Lin Zian didn't understand why she called him that at first. Maybe it was Suino Tekkai who instilled some strange knowledge into her. Because Uncle Swai said you could save grandpa, aren't you just like those masters? I'm different from those two fake monks. Don't compare me with them. Lin Zian's face turned dark. It turned out that this is how the title of master came from. Hey, Takashi Mai looked at him in surprise and asked, are those two liars? Stop talking nonsense, take me to see your grandpa, if you still want to save him. Lin Zian is not in the mood to play anymore. He can finish work early and go home to have a meal instead of hanging out with a bunch of fools here. Huh, Gao Shimei was startled by Lin Zian's sudden change of tone. After struggling for a while, she nodded, then turned and walked into the house. Lin Zian followed her in and heard her complaining about herself in a low voice. Why did Mr. Gao Shi move here? Lin Zian suddenly asked. Ah. This is because the villa is too noisy, and Grandpa likes it here. Gao Shimei answered Lin Zian's question respectfully. Master, do you have any questions? Oh, that's nothing. Also, don't call me master, I have a name. Yes, master. Lin Zian looked at Gao Shimai's back. Why did he think she was playing with me? Takashi Mai took him to the door of a room, turned sideways and said to him, wait a minute, don't make any noise, Grandpa is resting. Lin Zian nodded expressionlessly and motioned for her to open the door. After Mai Takashi opened the ancient sliding door, she stood aside, as if waiting for Lin Zian to enter. Lin Zian was naturally fearless and strode in, followed by Gao Shimai. The furnishings in the room are very simple, just a bed and a bedside table. An old man is lying on the bed. There doesn't seem to be anything strange about it. But this is the strangest part, there are not even some medical equipment. What's even more strange is that Lin Zian didn't find any abnormal energy in the person on the bed, which means. You go out first. Lin Zian waved his arm back, signaling Gao Shimei to leave the room. Hey! Why? Takashi Mai was stunned for a moment, then refused his request. I want to take care of Grandpa, and I can't let you stay here alone. I have to do some tests. It's inconvenient for you to stay here. Lin Zian turned to look at her, and if this continues, your grandfather will really die. What are you talking about? Grandpa will not die. Gao Shimai walked to the bed and looked at the person on the bed. If you don't believe me, at least you should believe Uncle Swai. He has no reason to ask me to harm your grandfather. Lin Zian has some questions to verify. It's really hard for him to deal with Gao Shimai's presence, so it's best to get her away first. But Gao Shimei obviously hesitated, and Lin Zian followed the trend. Do you still want to save your grandpa? If not, I will leave now, and then you don't want to ask me to take action again. Okay, I'm right outside. If you need anything, just call me. I know, It'll be over soon. Lin Zion smiled contemptuously. Was this a warning to him? My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 154. After Takaishi Mai left, Lin Zion walked to the bed and looked at the man on the bed. He had short silver hair, snow-white eyebrows, and thicker eyebrows than most people. He had a peaceful face and looked kind. Lin Zion estimated that he should be in his 70s or 80s. Stop pretending, get up. Lin Zion suddenly laughed. But the man on the bed did not react at all, and remained the same. I didn't lie to you, and your breathing frequency just changed. Get up, you can't fool me. But the man on the bed still did not react. Okay, you forced me to do this. Lin Zion stepped forward and pinched his nose. Within 10 seconds, his face turned red, and he opened his eyes in less than 30 seconds. Isn't this a lifesaver? Lin Zion laughed. Ahem, you are so cruel, you treat me like this, Takaishi Shuichiro said, holding back a cough. Who told you not to listen to me? I've already said it. Lin Zion didn't mind his attitude at all. What are you doing? Are you pretending to be dead? Shhh. Takaishi Shuichiro pulled Lin Zion's hand and made a gesture to silence him. Don't worry, no one can hear our conversation. Lin Zion had already made some arrangements. Looking at Takaishi Shuichiro's long sigh of relief, Lin Zion couldn't help but feel a little curious and asked, what's the situation now? What's the purpose of doing all this? Who are you? Why are you looking for me? Takaishi Shuichiro, who was half lying on the bed, took a glass of water from the side and asked after taking a sip. Didn't I just say that I was asked by Yukino Takemi to save you? But you don't seem to need my help. You must have been awake all along. I didn't expect it was Takemi. I really think he's my son-in-law. He told me that you two are close friends, but how come you're my son-in-law? Humph. If he hadn't suddenly married a woman, he would be my son-in-law now. I helped him so much, but he left my daughter in the blink of an eye. Takaishi Shuichiro was still indignant when he talked about this. Hell, Lin Zion chuckled. It seemed that it was a debt of love from Yukino Takemi. I didn't see your daughter over there just now. It seems that your daughter is not very reliable. Lin Zion didn't see a woman in the front hall just now. How could it be? She came to see me yesterday. Takaishi Shuichiro was obviously very proud of his daughter. Was Takemi there? Oh, after he said that, Lin Zion understood and showed an understanding expression on his face. She hasn't appeared in the same occasion with Takemi since that time. Takaishi Shuichiro looked a little regretful. For some reason, the couple that was almost perfect in his eyes suddenly broke up, and then Yukino Takemi suddenly announced her marriage. The matter ended before he could react. Let's talk about something serious. Why are you pretending to be sick? Lin Zion found that the two of them had been talking about the gossip about Yukino Takemi. This kind of thing can be discussed later. Now it is more important to deal with this mess and go to dinner. Why should I tell you? Takaishi Shuichiro narrowed his eyes slightly, revealing a sharp feeling. Do you have a choice? Either I go out and tell them that you are fine, or you go and tell them yourself. Lin Zion smiled, and your current situation is not good, otherwise you would not be trapped here. I am ashamed to say this. Takaishi Shuichiro sorted out his thoughts and told Lin Zion why he did this. After listening, Lin Zion had nothing to say, it was just a matter of interests. As the founder, Shuichiro Takaishi created the current foundation. He has 5 children, the second of whom is a daughter, and the other 4 are sons. As his children, they all have some power in their hands. As Shuichiro Takaishi has aged in recent years, he no longer has the desire to manage the business, and gradually wants to retire from the position, and who will take over has become a problem. The company is not dominated by their family alone. There is the involvement of the board of directors. Various factions have conflicts with each other, and the people they support are different. Once he retires, without the title of founder, it will become a problem whether the successor can still suppress it. But how could Shuichiro Takaishi not know this? He knew the abilities of his children and directly used his own power to forcefully suppress the voices of opposition and pushed up his eldest son, who he thought was the most suitable. The transfer of power was completed in the shortest time, avoiding the emergence of internal friction. But he had just retired when something happened. Company secrets were leaked, many actions were sniped by hostile forces, a large number of backbones were poached, and the board of directors launched an attack. These simultaneous appearances had to make him uneasy. Do you suspect there is a traitor? Lin Zian probably knew why he was like this. It's not suspicion, it's certainty, Takaishi Shuichiro said with a wry smile. There are some core secrets that only less than 10 people in the whole company know, including my children. What about the remaining few people? I've checked them all. Although Takaishi Shuichiro didn't have much emotion when he said it, Lin Zian could still see the cruelty in it. People who can create such a large business empire are not that simple. Whether they are bad or not is another matter, but they are definitely not good people. Have you found the traitor? Lin Zian asked casually. He felt that Takaishi Shuichiro was too calm and not panicked at all. I was prepared when those things just broke out, so they all thought I really couldn't stand the stimulation and went crazy. With the investigation these days, I really found something. The expression on Takaishi Shuichiro's face suddenly became a little strange, as if he couldn't figure out what he found. Then what are you going to do? Lin Zian felt a little bored. He came here and got nothing, but was angry. Of course, I'll clean up the mess. Takaishi Shuichiro closed his eyes, his tone was a little scary. Then I have nothing to do, go home and eat. Lin Zian patted his butt and left. Since others have almost done it, there is no need for him to get involved. This kind of mess should be left to them to deal with. Hey, wait a minute, didn't you say you wanted to help? You've already found it, why do you need my help? And my appearance fee is very high, and Yukino Takemi didn't pay it. Lin Zian didn't even turn his head, and stopped when he walked to the door. Friendly reminder, you should go back to bed and rest. I'm going out, it will be bad if your granddaughter sees you later. Takaishi Shuichiro said something that made Lin Zian confused. Do me a favor, wake me up. Lin Zian frowned when he heard this, turned around and looked at him, thinking, what does he mean? Why does he want me to wake him up? My retirement life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 155. After thinking for a while, Lin Zian understood what he meant. This old man probably didn't want his children to know that he was faking illness. What's the benefit of this? Gain the friendship of the Gaoshi family. Then what? Be targeted by your enemies and get involved in your disputes. This kind of empty promise without any nutrition had no appeal in his eyes, and Lin Zian was not interested in the friendship of their family. Isn't it enough for you to gain the friendship of the Gaoshi family without doing anything just by admitting that you saved me? Trust is not such a cheap thing. Since you have taken advantage of their trust in you, you must be prepared for this. Once there will be a second time, he still knows the truth that the wolf is coming. Gaoshi Shuichiro is afraid that this incident will affect the trust between him and his children. If he really gets sick in the future, his children will think he is faking illness, which will be embarrassing. Therefore, even if he knows about the traitor, he did not wake up, but pretended to be real and dragged it until Lin Zian arrived. In his opinion, Lin Zian is the best tool to make this lie come true. You probably don't know what the friendship of the Takaishi family represents. It's much more useful than money. Takaishi Shuichiro looked at Lin Zian, who was not tactful at all, and laughed at his short-sightedness in his heart. What you can do for me is the same as Yukino Takemi, or even better than you, so don't talk nonsense to me and show me some practical benefits. He was laughing at Lin Zian, and Lin Zian was also laughing at him. Yukino Takemi's strength is almost the top in Japan. Not to mention that your Takaishi family has just suffered such a blow. Even when Takaishi Shuichiro was in power, he couldn't compare with Yukino Takemi. Why did Lin Ziyan go far away? Then what do you want? Takaishi Shuichiro was speechless to Lin Ziyan. This kind of stubborn person is really a headache. Well, you play a play with me, and I play a play with you. Lin Ziyan smiled, as if he thought of something interesting. What do you mean? This time it was Takaishi Shuichiro's turn to be confused. He thought Lin Ziyan wanted money or something, so why did he act? Just tell me who the traitor is, and I'll take care of the rest. I'll come to save you after I'm done. What do you want to do? Takaishi Shuichiro suddenly felt a little regretful. Why does this person seem unreliable? Don't worry, I'm very reliable. If you don't believe me, ask Yukino Takemi. I'll help you get rid of the traitor, by the way, so you don't have to worry about it yourself. Oh okay, things had come to this point and he couldn't refuse. Lin Ziyan pushed the door out of the room. Takaishi Mai, who was guarding outside the door, asked him as soon as he saw him come out, "How is it, is Grandpa okay?" Lin Ziyan looked at Takaishi Mai speechlessly. Even if he was pretending to be sick again, he had been lying in bed for so long. You saw him like this, why would you ask such a question? No hope, wait for death, Lin Ziyan said casually and walked away. He was going to play now. Lin Ziyan returned to the small villa again, glanced at it, and found that the people were similar to before, and found the traitor that Takaishi Shuichiro mentioned among them. Seeing him closing his eyes and resting as if listening to music, Lin Ziyan smiled slightly. Shueye Wuhai, who had been impatient for a long time, saw Lin Ziyan coming back and was about to go out, but Lin Ziyan suddenly came in and grabbed the two monks and beat them up. His action not only scared Shueye Wuhai, but everyone present was also scared by Lin Ziyan, looking at him in confusion, and no one came out to stop his evil deeds. Lin Ziyan didn't care about anything and just wanted to find someone to vent his anger, and these two monks were naturally his punching bags. As for the reason, there was no reason, he just didn't like them. Who are you? Why did you hit the master? The man in the main seat finally couldn't sit still. Where would Gao Shi's face be if he beat people here? Master, Lin Ziyan's expression was very exaggerated, and he looked surprised. A person who is reading the theme song of an anime is a master in your eyes? Ha ha ha. How can you hold a Dharma meeting like this? I just can't stand it, so I came to remind you. What did you say? Several people present were confused. Did they listen to the theme song here for a long time? Why do you say that? I paid a lot of money to invite the master to pray for my father. A person next to the main seat stood up and questioned Lin Ziyan. Lin Ziyan saw that he was greasy, like a middle-aged greasy man. This appearance was incomparable to the one sitting in the main seat. No wonder Takaishi Shuichiro didn't choose him to take the seat. This is easy. Diamond Sutra, Heart Sutra, Shurangama Sutra, Avatamsaka Sutra. As long as they recite any one of them, I will stand here and let them beat me back. Of course, if they can't recite it, I will beat them again. Lin Ziyan pulled one of the two people and dragged him up with one hand. Come on, master. No, don't. The master, dragged out by Lin Ziyan, protected his head with both hands, and had no intention of reciting at all. Recite quickly, I will beat you again if you can't recite it, Lin Ziyan urged violently. Don't beat me, I can't do it. The master burst into tears. He has performed rituals, reciting the theme song, so many times, but he has never seen anyone who comes up to beat people. Look, this is the master. Lin Ziyan threw the man down casually and sarcastically said mercilessly, are you praying for him? Or are you praying for his early death? How can you talk like that? Even if they are fake, we invited them here. We didn't invite you. What's your business? The middle-aged greasy man seemed a little irritable. After all, he invited these two people here. Lin Ziyan was clearly making him look bad. I was invited here too. Lin Ziyan looked at him with a faint smile on his face. Who brought you here? Oh, by the way, it was the girl Mai who brought you here. Are you? I invited him here. The man was interrupted by Yukino Takemi before he finished speaking. This Yukino Takemi is not someone he can mess with. If it weren't for the relationship between their fathers, he wouldn't even be able to see Yukino Takemi. Mr. Yukino, this. The person in the main seat asked. This matter involves Yukino Takemi. If it's not handled properly, it may affect their relationship. He has a headache, but Yukino Takemi has an even bigger headache. He can't see that Lin Ziyan did it on purpose for him. This time, not only did he fail to repay the favor, but he also provoked the devil Lin Ziyan. Only he knows the distress in it. Ziyan, let's go now. He had to calm him down first and then slowly apologize. Shuya Wuhai looked at the person in the main seat. We will take our leave first. Please give my regards to Mr. Gao Shi. Why should we leave? I'm here to save people. Lin Ziyan didn't accept it. Lin Ziyan's words immediately put Shuya Wuhai in a dilemma. He had to smile awkwardly and sit down again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 156. As Shuya Wuhai sat down again, everyone realized that Lin Ziyan was the focus, and they all turned their eyes to him. This, sir. The man in the main seat hesitated for a moment. You just said you came to save people. Who are you going to save? Of course it's Takaishi Shuichiro. Is there anyone else sick here? Lin Ziyan was not polite and called him by his name, but no one dared to say another word to him. Da-da-da, a series of high heels hitting the ground came, and the scene suddenly became quiet. Everyone shifted their eyes from Lin Ziyan to the corridor, and even Lin Ziyan looked at him with interest, without feeling anxious at all. Humph! A cold snort came from the corridor, and a woman walked out slowly. The Jaishi family is not a place for you to be presumptuous, and it is even more unacceptable to borrow certain people. Lin Ziyan looked at the person who came, a beautiful woman in her 40s, with her hair tied up behind her head and delicate makeup. She had been in a high position for a long time, which gave her a sense of superiority. She was wearing a white long-sleeved shirt, a dark blue women's suit on the outside, and a pair of black 9-point trousers, which was very consistent with her temperament. This is not the most interesting thing. The most interesting thing is that she only looked at him when she just came out, and then she kept staring at Shuya Wuhai. She is Shuya Wuhai's dead of love. Lin Ziyan looked at Shuya Wuhai meaningfully. Shuya Wuhai's scalp was numb when this woman came out. Now even Lin Ziyan looked at him like this. He couldn't afford to offend both sides. Shuya Wuhai had to watch his nose with his eyes, his mouth with his nose, and his heart with his mouth, and pretended not to see it. Most of the people present knew about the two of them, but they didn't dare to say it, so they had to be wooden. Tisk Gao Shiwa curled his lips, not looking at Shuya Wuhai, but walked to Lin Ziyan. You said you can save my father. You don't believe me, but I believe Uncle Shuya. Lin Ziyan smiled and looked at the expressions of the two of them. You are so familiar with him, you should know that he is not someone who would ask a master. Who is familiar with him? Gao Shiwa's eyes widened, as if something was touched. Shuya Wuhai could only smile bitterly when he heard Lin Ziyan's words. This is retribution. Aren't you familiar with each other? Lin Ziyan asked in a puzzled manner. Of course not. Gao Shiwa crossed his hands and looked at Shuya Wuhai from time to time. Then it's none of my business, uncle, let's go. Lin Ziyan spread his hands and said to Shuya Wuhai, don't look at him, he has nothing to do with you, let's go home early to eat. Lin Ziyan was angry when he said that he had agreed to come over for dinner, but now, let alone dinner, there is not even a glass of water. Shui Wuhai was also confused when he heard Lin Ziyan's words. He knew that Lin Ziyan was not sure that he would not say such a thing. That is, Lin Ziyan could save Takahashi Shuichiro, but what was going on now? Why didn't he save him? On second thought, he was probably not satisfied yet, otherwise he would have left directly. Why would he talk so much nonsense here? He clearly wanted to watch the show. Shui Wuhai hurried over and pulled Lin Ziyan aside to talk in private. Ziyan, what are you doing? Nothing, I'm going home to eat. Shui Wuhai had to smile helplessly when he heard this. He knew that Lin Ziyan still had grievances against him. I apologize to you here, and I will make up for this meal later. Lin Ziyan smiled and said to him, compared to this meal, I am more interested in your debt of love. You, what do you want? Shui Wuhai shook his head and smiled bitterly. Why did he provoke him for no reason? What should he do now? As long as she admits that she knows you well, I will help you. Lin Ziyan looked like he was watching a good show. This. Shui Wuhai hesitated, okay, who told me to be wrong first? Shui Wuhai was very familiar with the feeling of powerlessness of being played by Lin Ziyan. It was not the first time for him to do this. Don't be like this. This is a debt of love you owed. I am helping you. Lin Ziyan continued to encourage him. Okay, thank you so much. Shui Wuhai waved his hand weakly and turned to walk towards Gao Shiwu. Everyone didn't hear the conversation between the two of them. They just saw that after a few words, Shui Wuhai walked towards Gao Shiwu with a helpless look on his face. Only those who were familiar with their relationship knew how incredible this was. The two people hadn't contacted or talked for more than 10 years, and now they changed after a few words from a young man. They couldn't figure out the reason, and finally they could only attribute it to the chaos of this world. No one understood, and Takahashi Mai was even more confused. Although she said that she was avoiding Yukino Takemi, it was because Yukino Takemi avoided her first that it turned out like this. But now Yukino Takemi actually walked towards her. To be honest, she was still a little panicked. But she couldn't show it in front of Yukino Takemi. Xiaowu Yukino Takemi thought about it and used the name they used before. When Takahashi Mai heard this name, her nose was sore. After more than 10 years, the two talked again. Come here first, I have something to tell you. Yukino Takemi didn't want to make a fool of herself in front of so many people, so she could only bite the bullet and grab Takahashi Mai's hand and pull her aside. What are you doing? Let me go. Although Takahashi Mai said this, it was obviously just a symbolic resistance, and her footsteps had already followed Yukino Takemi. The two people came to one side. Sui Wukai turned around and looked around. The surrounding sounds suddenly disappeared. Then he said to Gao Shiwu, Xiaowu, it's all my fault. Sui Tekkai kept his attitude very low, because he really felt wronged in front of Gao Shiwu, and he himself felt a little guilty. Is this why you called me here? Of course not, it's just. When Gao Shiwu said this, he didn't know what to say. Did you call him here to cause trouble? Gao Shiwu also saw what happened just now. She knew exactly what kind of person Yukino Tekkai was. She could make him make such concessions, and even force him to come to see her. Such a person is completely. There are not many neons left. This person is definitely not here to cause trouble, but what is his purpose? I originally asked him to come over and take a look at Mr. Gao Shi, who knew something happened, so I left him alone for half an hour. I'm afraid I offended him. Can he really save his father? He looks like he's still a high school student, and the school badge on his chest is from your school. You couldn't just pull him over from your school, right? You don't know his strength. Yukino Tekkai's expression suddenly became serious. You know, my daughter was cured by him. Gao Shiwu did not answer his words, but looked at Lin Ziyan not far away. Lin Ziyan also looked at the two of them with a smile. They had no idea that their conversation was clearly heard by Lin Zion. I just discovered that a few chapters have been blocked. Don't tell me I'm driving. I don't even have the car keys. My retirement life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 157. Yukino Tekkai and Gao Shiwu chatted for almost 10 minutes. Lin Zion was very interesting to see the changes in their expressions. Besides, others couldn't hear the conversation between the two, but he could hear it. Not to mention how interesting it is, there are really not many people who can make it like Yukino Tekkai. Moreover, Lin Zion thinks that the relationship between the two people is not what Shuichiro Takaishi said, but, how should I put it, a tacit understanding. Yes, a tacit understanding. This is very interesting. Anyway, after today's incident, other people Lin Zion didn't know, but something must have happened to Yukino Tekkai. While Lin Zion was thinking wildly, the two of them also ended their conversation, and both looked at Lin Zion at the same time. But Lin Zion faced it calmly, and the smile on his face did not change at all. Gao Shiwu walked towards Lin Zion, but her expression was somewhat reluctant, and she was obviously a little resistant to his request. Resistance is fun, isn't it? Lin Zion's smile became even brighter. What on earth do you want to do? Born into such a wealthy family, Gao Shiwu has been well dressed and well fed since she was a child. She has been accustomed to a life of bossing around. Except for a few incidents, she has never failed. Today, she is suddenly asked to bow to a high school student? If Yukino Tekkai hadn't described him so magically, she wouldn't have even glanced at such a person walking past her. Lin Zion did not answer her directly, but gave Sui Wilhei a meaningful look, then leaned into Gao Shiwu's ear and said something. Then Gao Shiwu also turned to look at Yukino Tekkai, and her eyes became strange. The operations of these two people made Sui Tekkai confused. He saw Gao Shiwu asking Lin Zion, and then Lin Zion said something unknown to Gao Shiwu, and then both of them looked at him. The looks in the eyes of the two of them had their own meanings, and he felt as if he had been involved in them today. This is the time for something to happen. Are you familiar with Sui Tekkai? Lin Zion asked with a smile. Familiar, Gao Shiwu replied with a deadpan expression, and he must have been prepared. Then what's your relationship? Friend. No, this level is not enough. Lin Zion shook his head. If I give you another chance, I won't save people if I'm not satisfied. You, don't go too far. The chance is gone. I want to go home. Lin Zion turned around and wanted to leave, but was held back by Sui Tekkai. Sui Wilhei was also miserable. He knew that Lin Zion was taking it out on him, but he still wanted to get closer because he knew that Gao Shiwu's temper would definitely lead to a falling out with Lin Zion, but it was already like this at this time, and he couldn't ignore it. Now he can still win a miserable victory. If Lin Zion loses after leaving this courtyard, because he knows that Lin Zion can't turn back, even if he can't make Lin Zion change his mind, then all the previous efforts will be in vain, and he will still be punished. Lin Zion laughed for so long in vain. What, uncle wants to be a hero and save the beauty? Lin Zion was not surprised that Sui Tekkai intervened. This was something he had already considered. After all, I promised Shuichiro Takaishi, so the matter was settled. He was just eating appetizers now. It would be a pity if he left without eating the main meal. Please stop playing. I will apologize to you. Let's revive Mr. Gaoshi first. Others couldn't hear it, but Takaishi Mai, who was next to her, could hear it clearly. Even if she knew that Yukino Tekkai valued this person very much, she still didn't understand why his posture was so low, just because he ignored him for half an hour. What is his identity in Neon, Tekkai Yukino? Even if he meets you, let alone half an hour, no one dares to say anything even if it lasts for half a day, and you still have to lick your face. Just because he saved his daughter? Thinking of this, she remembered what happened back then, and couldn't help but feel a little angry, and cut Yukino Tekkai on the spot. Yukino Tekkai did not tell Gao Shiwu about the details of Lin Xian's rescue of Yukino Yami. He only mentioned it briefly, and did not tell Gao Shiwu about the incident of dealing with Blackfoot. He is still a very cautious person and knows that too much is not good for them. Yukino Tekkai didn't notice Gao Shiwu's eyes, but Lin Xian saw it, so he smiled and said, "It seems that beauties don't buy heroes anymore." Alas, Sui Tekkai sighed and said a nonsensical sentence, "This time it's mine." Are you sure? Lin Xian didn't expect to be able to take back this favor so soon. It's just a small thing in the first place, but it's Xian who insists on saying it's a personal matter. Okay, now that Yukino Tekkai has said so and the main purpose has been accomplished, it would seem stingy for him to continue playing. What did you say? You don't have to worry about this matter. Gao Shiwu didn't understand the conversation between the two of them at all, and this settled the matter without taking her as a key figure seriously. Then I don't care, Lin Xian said casually. I'm not talking about you. Gao Shiwu was even mad at Lin Xian. I'm talking about you. Lin Xian looked at Sui Wuhei. Stop making trouble. After rescuing people quickly, I will take you to dinner. This time I will make sure you are satisfied. Sui Wuhei has no way to deal with Lin Xian, but he just agreed, so Sui Wuhei is not afraid of him. No work. Although a favor was used up this time, it was a gift in the first place, so he didn't feel bad about it, and he was prepared for this when he asked Lin Xian to come. Come here, all of you sons and daughters. I'll show you what happened to Takaishi Shuichiro and how I can save him. Lin Xian waved his hand and turned around to walk to where Takaishi Shuichiro was. The people here were all Takaishi Shuichiro's relatives, that is, his son's wife and children. Lin Xian didn't notice that Takaishi Dozai, who had been teased by him before, was in the crowd. But even if he knew, Lin Xian wouldn't have looked at it more. It was originally a small game, and he was willing to accept the loss. Lin Xian took everyone to the house. When he entered, he heard crying. In confusion, he saw Takaishi Mai squatting in front of the door of Takaishi Shuichiro's recuperation room. What are you doing? Lin Xian asked. It's you. Takaishi Mai looked up at Lin Xian, and then saw a group of people following him. She was so scared that she stood up quickly and wiped the tears from her face with both hands. What are you doing here? Why don't you go take care of Grandpa? The eldest son who led the group frowned slightly, and his tone was extremely stern. Father, Mr. Takaishi, I'm not lazy. Takaishi Mai timidly faced the man. Forget it, go away. Wait, come here. Lin Xian called Takaishi Mai, I need an assistant, it's you. Takaishi Mai looked at the man just now, and didn't agree until he nodded. After Lin Xian called her over, he announced, you children come in with me, the others wait here. I'm going to stay out of the spotlight, everyone knows. 3 updates will continue until Sunday, then resume 2 or even 1 update. My retirement life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 158. By the way, Uncle, would you like to come in and take a look? Lin Xian suddenly said to Sui Tekkai. I won't go in. Sui Wuhei actually wanted to follow up and take a look, but thinking that Lin Xian didn't ask him to go in immediately, this meant that he was not suitable to go in, just like last time. Forget it, Uncle, you'd better come in together, just as a witness, or what if I accidentally fail to save my life? Lin Xian had his own considerations. At first, it was because this was a family matter of the Jaishi family, and as the saying goes, family scandals should not be made public, so Lin Xian did not mention letting Yukino Tekkai in. But he always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't say it out, so it was better to let him in together. Even if something happens, someone will take the blame. He doesn't carry it anyway. Okay, Sui Wuhei didn't know why Lin Xian asked him to go in, but it was good to go in and see it to satisfy his curiosity. Lin Xian took the lead to go in, and the people behind him filed in, and this small room immediately became crowded. "Come here." Lin Zian pointed at Gao Shimei and asked her to stand beside the bed. "Stand far away, otherwise I won't be responsible for anything that happens." Yukino Tekkai stood in the corner obediently. He had seen those things before, so it was better to listen to the professionals. With the template of Yukino Tekkai in front of them, everyone obediently stayed away from the bed and stood in the corner. "Take this, don't let it leave your hand." Lin Zian took out the jade seal and handed it to Gao Shimei. Yes, Gao Shimei held the jade seal carefully, respectfully, as if she was afraid that the jade seal would jump out of her hand. Everyone also craned their necks to look at the jade seal in Gao Shimei's hand, wondering what it was. "Are you ready?" Lin Zian glanced at everyone. "Don't disturb me later, otherwise I won't be responsible for anything that happens." "Please do it, we won't disturb you." Lin Zian ignored them, but walked to the bed, looked at Shuichiro Takaishi, and said, "Let me tell you first, he is not sick, but has been knocked out of his mind." Soul collision. Everyone was puzzled and started discussing. "Don't make any noise," Lin Zian shouted, shocking them. "I will explain to you." "Yes, please let me know." The eldest son came out to appease everyone and apologized to Lin Zian. "Actually, it's because the kid got on top of him and hit his soul, that's why he had such symptoms." Lin Zian looked at them and said with a smile, "I know you won't believe me, maybe you are still cursing in your heart now. I'm a fool. But it doesn't matter." Lin Zian changed his voice and walked back to the bed. "You will believe me." "Master, don't you need to prepare anything?" the greasy middle-aged man said with a smile. "I'll say it again, don't talk." Lin Zian felt unhappy when he looked at him like that. He glanced at him briefly and ignored him. "Either you believe me and I will do it, or you don't believe me and do it yourself." "Stop talking," the eldest son scolded him. He was now a living doctor, otherwise he wouldn't listen to the theme song. Lin Zian put one hand on the door in front of Takaishi Shuichiro, made a strange gesture with the other hand, closed his eyes, and muttered something. At first, people didn't think anything, until Shuichiro Takaishi's face began to distort, and traces of black air came out from his mouth and nose, and the black air slowly gathered in Lin Zian's hands as if being pulled by an unknown object. When the black energy in his hands gathered to a certain level, Lin Zian would send the black energy into the jade seal. This operation scared Gao Shimei so much that she shook like a sieve, and finally she simply closed her eyes. As the black energy escaping from his body gradually decreased, the expression on Shuichiro Takaishi's face began to soften, without the ferocious look before. Just when everyone thought the matter was over and just breathed a sigh of relief, a shadow suddenly appeared on Shuichiro Takaishi's face, which shocked everyone. Fortunately, they had all seen the world, so there was nothing strange except for being a little surprised. Performance. "Be careful, I can't control you now," Lin Zian said while moving his hands without stopping, but with his hands hanging above Shuichiro Takaishi, his fingers bent as if catching something. As Lin Zian raised his hand, the phantom gradually appeared in front of everyone. A translucent shadow with a human form, but did not look like Shuichiro Takaishi. Lin Zian was struggling, and his face gradually turned pale. His hands would shake from time to time, and each shake touched the hearts of everyone present. They were not concerned about Lin Zian's condition, but they were worried about what would happen if this thing escaped. The shadow slowly peeled off Shuichiro Takaishi's body, and everyone saw a figure with a stooped figure, as thin as a half-length figure made of hemp rope. Just when everyone was at ease, the shadow jumped instantly and flew around the room as if breaking free from restraints. Everyone was frightened and crouched on guard with their heads held in their hands. Only Tekkai Yukino stood calmly, if not for the fact that he was still holding Gao Shi in his arms. "If you dance." Yukino Tekkai originally wanted to be like them, but Gao Shi was suddenly hugged him. This hug made him miss the opportunity, and the trembling person in his arms did not allow him to do that. He had to bite the bullet and hold on, but he found that shadows will avoid him. After much deliberation, this is the only thing I can think of. Yukino Wuhei rubbed the ring Lin Zion gave him. Since he put on this ring, many people have talked about him, and some people have advised him to change it to a better looking one, but he didn't dare to change it. Lin Zion's words that day were still in his mind. Although he also doubted the authenticity, what's the use of a crude ring, until today. Lin Zion was busy for a long time before catching the phantom and sending it into the jade seal. The embarrassed people also stood up from the ground as if they were relieved. And Gao Shimei also pushed Yukino Wuhei away and arranged her hair with both hands. Although Lin Zion deliberately scared them, these people's performance was not as good as Gao Shimei. Even if she was afraid, she didn't move around. She insisted on shrinking to the side until Lin Zion finished. How about it? You have seen it. Lin Zion held the jade seal and walked towards the crowd. You, don't come over. The greasy middle-aged man covered his face with one hand and drove away with the other hand. Don't embarrass yourself. The eldest son slapped him with one hand, pushed him away, walked up to Lin Zion and asked, "How is my father?" "He won't die, he will be fine in a while." Lin Zion put away the jade seal and walked towards Takaishi Shuichiro. Seeing Lin Zion say this, everyone came forward and surrounded Takaishi Shuichiro's bed. "Wake up!" Lin Zion shook Takaishi Shuichiro roughly. His children saw it but dared not say anything. What just happened was beyond their cognition. I created a Q group, you can join if you are interested. Group number, 6340866986. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 159. Came Shuichiro Takaishi's weak voice. He slowly opened his eyes and saw everyone gathered in front of him, asking, "What's wrong with you? Why am I here?" Shuichiro Takaishi struggled to get up. I have to say that this old man's acting skills are really not bad. If Lin Zion didn't know that he was faking, he would have thought it was true. Father has just been rescued. Don't move around yet. Everyone didn't know what to say. Could it be that father, you have hit a ghost? Definitely not. What if I scare him again? Then there was a series of greetings, while Lin Zion and Yukino Tekkai stood aside and watched the scene of a loving father and a filial son. Let's go. Seeing that there was no point in staying in this situation, Sui Tekhei simply wanted to take Lin Zion away. After all, he still owed him a meal, so he would be relieved to send this plague god away as soon as possible. Leave. Lin Zion looked at Sui Wuhei and said meaningfully, "Now is not the time." Huh, Sui Tekkai's heart skipped a beat. You're not going to cause trouble again, are you? Lin Zion didn't explain, just smiled. Listen to me first. Lin Zion walked to Shuichiro Jasei's bed and stopped everyone. Master, what do you want to do? Now they are still very respectful to Lin Zion. After all, they have just seen the unknown side, and the unknown is the most terrifying. I just discovered a very interesting problem. Lin Zion looked at Shuichiro Jasei, but found that he seemed to have a problem with him. But Lin Zion didn't care. This was his home court now. If the old man dared to talk nonsense, Lin Zion would go up and label him as possessed by an evil spirit, and then help him treat it. When the time comes, we will see whether Shuichiro Takaishi's children believe him or his words. Excuse me, what's the problem? Perhaps because he didn't want to be exposed to this kind of incident, the eldest son was pushed out by everyone to face Lin Zion. The interesting question is. Lin Zion paused deliberately, glanced at the people present, observed their expressions, and then said, "It doesn't look like this thing went in by himself, but someone put it on Shuichiro Takashi." Lin Zion's words immediately caused an uproar among several people, but before they could react, Lin Zion dropped another even more shocking news. Because it is impossible for someone who is not close to him to put something like that on Shuichiro Takaishi, so that person is probably among you. Now everyone was in a rage, but the strange thing was that they all just said it was none of their business, and then they made no other moves, not even an argument, let alone an accusation. This situation made Lin Zion very curious. Do they trust each other? Or do you just not trust it in the first place? Lin Zion looked at their expressions and movements. These micro-expressions could tell a lot of things, giving him a sense of God's perspective. It was just that he was usually too lazy to observe. After all, if he knew everything, life would be boring. Master, what are you thinking? Seeing that nothing was wrong, the eldest son asked Lin Zion. I can help you find him, but it will cost you something. Lin Zion also knew about their xiaojuju, and then said, of course, you can also check it out yourself, then I will leave. Lin Zion was about to leave, and his eldest son quickly came over and said respectfully, whatever the master wants, as long as we have it. Lin Zion felt a little better when he saw that this person was quite upright. It's a request, but I haven't thought about it yet. I'll wait until I do. This. Everyone hesitated after hearing what he said. This request was difficult to confirm, and Lin Zion did not specify the specific conditions. What if he was asked to give him all the Gaoshi family's property later? Lin Zion also saw their problem and added, don't worry, my request will not exceed your ability, and I am not interested in money. On the bed, Shuichiro Takaishi saw the tangled look of his sons. He wanted to tell them not to be fooled. I know who the traitor is, but now the scene is out of his control, and he can only accept it. It's really easy to invite God but hard to send away. Okay, I promise you personally. That's okay. Lin Zion knew that he was being clever, but he didn't care. It was just a shot with or without dates, and it would be enough to reap the benefits. Only when one is content can he be happy. Lin Zion casually took out a bug from his pocket. It was about the size of a thumb and was completely black. The two tentacles were moving around in his hand. He took out the jade seal and put it in front of the bug. The bug seemed to sense something. He crawled towards the jade seal and touched it with two tentacles. It didn't take long for Lin Zion to separate it. It will lead us to find that person. Lin Zion shook his head slightly, and the insect flapped its wings and flew up. After wandering next to Lin Zion, it flew towards Shuichiro Takaishi. When everyone was puzzled, Lin Zion explained, it is judged based on the residual concentration, so it will be with me and Shuichiro Takaishi first, and then we will know who the next person is. After listening to Lin Zion's words, the insect turned around after hovering above Shuichiro Takaishi. Everyone was frightened and followed the insect closely, fearing that the insect would fly to them. Lin Zion controlled the insect to stay on the traitor's head for a while. That's him. Lin Zion pointed at the greasy middle-aged man. What are you talking about? How could I harm my father? You liar! The middle-aged man saw that everyone was looking at him, and he couldn't help but defend himself. It's very simple to prove it. Lin Zion walked in front of him. As long as you have been in contact, there will be residue. Do you dare to let me try it? Come on! The middle-aged man seemed fearless. He really had never done such a thing, so he was naturally not afraid of Lin Zion. Are you ready? Lin Zion smiled slightly. His methods were not what these people could think of. You said you were. After Lin Zion finished speaking, he put his hand on his face in the air without paying attention to him. As time went by, the middle-aged man's face gradually distorted, and a trace of black air appeared in his mouth and nose, but not that much. This is impossible. I didn't do it. The middle-aged man felt that his facial muscles were out of control, and it seemed that something was pulled out of his body. This is the fact. Lin Zion turned his hand over, and a small ball of black air was in his palm. Do you have anything else to say? Lin Zion wanted him to take the blame, and he had to take it even if he didn't want to. As soon as Lin Xian's hand was released, he couldn't stop falling to the ground. Finally, Lin Xian helped him to stabilize. You want to kill your father? Lin Xian looked very puzzled. For what? Money. My retirement life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 160. No, how could I do such a thing? Then how do you explain this? Lin Xian put the black air in front of him, and this move scared him and made him scream. Take it away, this must be fake, you must believe me. The middle-aged man fell to the ground while pushing and shoving. He looked up at his brothers and sisters, dancing and waving his hands, just like a fish out of water flopping on the ground. In fact, it may not be you, maybe you have come into contact with someone who accidentally brought it. Lin Xian guided his thinking direction. Yes. It must be like this. He heard Lin Xian's words as if he had grabbed a life-saving straw. Then have you ever come into contact with anyone who wants Takaishi Shuichiro dead? Lin Xian squatted down and looked at his greasy face, and the sweat he produced actually flowed directly out. This. When Lin Xian said this, he was obviously panicked. Not to mention that Lin Xian saw it, everyone present was smart, and they knew there was a problem when they saw his reaction. Who have you come into contact with? The eldest son questioned him. No. No. As soon as he finished speaking, Takaishi Mai jumped out. Did you bring it yourself? Impossible. How could I be that kind of person? Lin Xian watched several people arguing there, while Yukino Takemi was chatting with Takaishi Shuichiro, and there was another Takaishi Mai standing uncomfortably in the corner, watching all this in panic. Seeing that the fun was almost over, Lin Xian walked towards the middle-aged man and said to him, "It must be you, why did you kill Takaishi Shuichiro? Do you want to share the family property?" "I really didn't," the middle-aged man burst into tears, and he looked as miserable as he could be. Lin Xian felt a little embarrassed to continue persecuting him when he saw how miserable he was. "Child, I know you didn't do it, but now that things have come to this point, I can only wrong you for the sake of the overall situation, so go." This is simple. Lin Xian turned around and said to his eldest son, if he was bought by someone else to kill Takaishi Shuichiro, then there must be a large amount of changes in his account. You can find out by checking this. As soon as Lin Xian said this, everyone looked at the middle-aged man. "I admit that I have had contact with those people, but I definitely have no intention of killing my father." The middle-aged man finally told the story under pressure. In fact, he was trapped. One of his lovers was arranged by a hostile company. During the investigation, they found out that he had embezzled company property, so they used this matter to threaten him and asked him to sell out the interests of the company. From Takaishi Shuichiro, I learned that this was just one of the links in the chain, but it was the most fatal. The betrayal of a large number of business secrets means that the hostile forces know your development path, so they can calmly arrange targeted sniping. You have also benefited a lot from it, right? I think you are eager for Takaishi Shuichiro to die. Anyway, you don't have a position in the group. I heard that no one in the group supports you to take the position, right? Lin Xian fanned the flames. He wanted to nail this matter down and not let him have a chance to turn the tables. "I really didn't," the middle-aged man sighed to the sky. Unfortunately, no one believed him. Lin Xian sat in the passenger seat and looked out the window, letting the strong wind blow on his face. Yukino Takemi, who was in charge of the driver, didn't say a word, but Lin Xian could still see that he was a little entangled. This situation lasted for a while, until Yukino Takemi couldn't help it and asked, "Is this fake?" Lin Xian turned his gaze from the window to Yukino Takemi, smiled and said, "What do you think?" Takaishi Shuichiro didn't ask him to keep it secret, and he didn't believe that Yukino Takemi couldn't see it. More importantly, Takaishi Shuichiro told Yukino Takemi that this was fake. After all, it was good to be able to do that in a hurry, but it was still difficult for Yukino Takemi, who was an outsider and a smart person, to hide it from him. Lin Zion knew that he had doubts when he talked to Takaishi Shuichiro alone, and Lin Zion heard their conversation. Heh, Shuya Wuhai smiled helplessly. I felt something was wrong when Mr. Gao-shi woke up. He didn't seem to care about what you were doing. You know, it was his son who wanted to kill him. He didn't do anything, and didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at you calmly. What else? Lin Ziyan didn't believe that he only saw these. And you are exaggerating, Shuya Wuhai laughed as he said this. You told me the classification of those things last time, and I have seen your strength. It can't be that difficult. It's all my fault that I didn't react at the time. It's a bit funny to think about it now. Lin Ziyan briefly told him about the Gao-shi family, and then reviewed the scene with him. You just caught that bug. Shuya Wuhai was a little surprised when he heard this. The best actor in that scene turned out to be a minor role. This was really a bit unexpected. He thought that it was really a spiritual bug raised by Lin Ziyan. Yes, I caught it by the way when I took you there. Who would bring these to dinner? Lin Ziyan didn't understand why he reacted so strongly. When it comes to eating, Shuya Wuhai is embarrassed. He hasn't eaten since 5 o'clock. Don't worry, this time the uncle will definitely not cheat you. I will take you to the best place in Tokyo, where you can eat, drink and have fun. I hope it's true. Lin Ziyan lay back in his seat and closed his eyes to rest. I'm back. Lin Ziyan was holding a box in one hand and a school uniform jacket in the other. When Lin Ziyan entered, he saw Oda and her daughter watching TV. He glanced at them and saw those silly variety shows again. King Tian-kun is back. Oda Michiko pushed Reina away and stood up to take the things in Lin Ziyan's hand. Oda Reina lingered on the sofa for a while as if she had just fallen asleep. Lin Ziyan then realized that she should have fallen asleep just now. Seeing her like this, Lin Ziyan woke her up. Go back to your room if you are sleepy, don't sleep here, it will be troublesome if you catch a cold later. Oda Reina heard Lin Ziyan's voice in a daze, and when she opened her eyes, she saw Lin Ziyan in front of her. Why did you come back now? What time is it? Oda Reina wiped her eyes with her hands. Lin Ziyan couldn't help but smile at her cute look, and touched her head and said, It's 11 o'clock, are you hungry? I brought snacks back. Snacks? Oda Reina's confused eyes suddenly became sharp. I want snacks. No. Oda Michiko walked out of the kitchen. It's so late, eating midnight snacks will make you fat. Oh, hearing Oda Michiko's words, Oda Reina immediately wilted and lay on the sofa. Good boy, go to bed. Oda Michiko pulled her up, and then said to Lin Ziyan, I'll go run the water for Qing Tianjun to take a bath first.